I stood beside a stranger in the moonlit line. Then Alphaking turned, inhaled, and whispered, "Mate." Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Lyra had always felt like an invisible shadow in the pack. Even in the midst of celebrations and grand gatherings, she remained unnoticed, like the smallest ripple in a vast, unyielding ocean. As the moonlight bathed the scene, she stood at the edge of the crowd, out of sight and out of mind. This was the grand festival, a celebration of the most important event in the pack's calendar, the choosing of mates. The air buzzed with excitement, the scent of fine food mixing with the rich, earthy smell of the forest that surrounded the clearing. But for Lyra, this was just another night of quiet isolation. She wasn't even supposed to be here. She had no mate to claim her, no one to defend her, no one to choose her. Lyra felt the weight of the silence in her chest. Her gaze drifted over the couples, all the betas and alphas, paired off in content, each of them basking in the spotlight. But then, something changed. In the midst of the celebration, a powerful presence entered the space, drawing every eye toward him. The Alphaking, Xavier. He walked with an unearthly grace, his eyes glowing with the fierce intensity of someone who had seen and conquered all. The crowd parted, respect and fear in their every move. Lyra didn't even realize she was looking at him until he locked eyes with her, his piercing gaze making her heart skip a beat. The world seemed to fade into silence around them, a stillness that echoed between the two of them like an unspoken truth. He didn't look away. Neither did she. And in that moment, she felt something stirred deep within her. Was it fear? Or something else? Xavier, the Alphaking, stood still, his silver eyes trained on her. His presence, powerful as it was, didn't need words to command attention. He inhaled deeply, as if savoring the very air she breathed. Then, he whispered softly, barely audible to the surrounding pack, but to Lyra, it felt like a thunderclap in the night. "Mate." The word hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Every wolf around them seemed to hold its breath. The crowd fell into stunned silence, and for the first time in her life, Lyra felt the eyes of everyone on her. The moment was electric, charged with energy that Lyra had never known. Xavier's words echoed in her mind, and she couldn't understand what was happening. How could this be real? How could the Alphaking, a man so feared and revered, claim her, a mere Omega, as his mate? But the truth was in the way he looked at her. His gaze, strong and unwavering, told her everything. In that fleeting moment, her world shifted. From invisible to the center of it all, the Alphaking had chosen her. I stood there, frozen in place as the words "mate" echoed in my mind. The Alphaking, Xavier, had just claimed me in front of everyone. A wave of shock swept through me, followed by an overwhelming rush of emotions. I couldn't believe it. How could someone like him, so powerful, so feared, choose someone like me? An Omega who had always been cast aside, ignored, and overlooked. My heart raced in my chest, and for a moment, I thought I might faint. But I didn't. I stood still, holding my breath, as the entire pack watched in stunned silence. I could feel their eyes on me, judging, questioning. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to run and hide. But Xavier's gaze remained locked on mine, unwavering. It was as if he had claimed me in the deepest part of his soul. The weight of his attention made it feel like the ground beneath me had shifted. "Come," he said, his voice deep and commanding. His words didn't need to be repeated. They pierced through the air with the force of a storm. Slowly, almost mechanically, I stepped forward, my legs shaking beneath me. Every step felt like a battle. Every step felt like the end of my old life and the beginning of something terrifyingly new. The crowd parted as I moved closer to him. I could hear their whispers, some in awe, some in disbelief. But none of that mattered now. Nothing mattered except the Alphaking standing before me, waiting. I reached him, and he extended his hand. His fingers were warm, solid, and powerful as they closed around mine. The touch sent a shock wave through me, a strange, unexplainable connection that made my heart race even faster. He didn't speak as he led me through the crowd. The silence between us was deafening, but somehow, it didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt inevitable. We walked out of the clearing, away from the pack, away from everything I had known. The moonlight cast a pale glow over everything, and for the first time, I felt like I was part of something bigger, like I was finally seen. Finally, when we reached the edge of the forest, Xavier stopped. He turned to face me, his eyes softer now, though still intense. "You are my mate," he repeated, but this time, his voice was different. There was no command in it. It was almost a whisper, a promise. "You belong to me, and I to you." The words sent a shiver down my spine, and my breath caught in my throat. What did it all mean? Was this really happening? Was I truly his? I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, my voice lost. Instead, I just nodded, barely able to process the reality of it all. Xavier stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, and gently cupped my face with his large hand. "I will protect you," he said softly, his voice full of authority and warmth. "I will keep you safe, always." The words were a balm to my soul, and for the first time, I felt like I had a purpose. Like I wasn't just a shadow in the background, but someone important. Someone who mattered. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know what my future held with the Alphaking. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. My life would never be the same. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop running and embrace the destiny that had been thrust upon me. I could hardly believe the words that had come from Xavier's lips. He had claimed me, right there in front of everyone, in front of the entire pack. His words echoed in my mind as we walked deeper into the woods, far from the watchful eyes of the pack. The night air was cool, but I felt a strange warmth radiating from within, as if the world had shifted, and I was no longer the invisible Omega, forgotten and overlooked. Xavier's presence was overwhelming, but there was something oddly comforting about it, something that made my heart beat a little faster. He had taken my hand, and in that simple gesture, I had felt something stir deep within me, something I couldn't quite explain. "Don't be afraid," he said suddenly, his voice low but reassuring. "You're not alone anymore. I'll take care of you, Lyra. You are mine, and I am yours." His words were like a promise, one that settled over me like a blanket, offering protection and safety. It was hard to imagine that this was really happening, that the man everyone feared and respected as the Alphaking had chosen me, an Omega, to be his mate. I had always believed that someone like him would never look at someone like me, but here we were, alone in the woods, with nothing but the stars above and the silent promise of a future I could hardly comprehend. As we walked, I noticed that the further we went, the more I felt a strange pull toward him, like something invisible was drawing us together. I couldn't explain it, but it felt natural, inevitable even, like this was always meant to be. The path ahead of us was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the trees, casting long shadows on the ground. There was something magical about the night, something that made everything feel surreal, like a dream that I couldn't quite wake up from. We reached a clearing, and Xavier stopped, turning to face me. His silver eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, reflecting the moonlight, and for a moment, it felt as if the world had paused just for us. "Lyra," he said, his voice soft but full of authority. "You're my mate. That means more than just a bond. It means that you are my equal, my partner. I will never let anyone harm you." His words were like a shield, and I felt something inside me relax, something I didn't even know I had been holding on to. "But there's something you should know," he continued, his tone growing serious. "I am not like the others. I carry a burden, a curse that I cannot escape. It has taken much from me, and it will take more before it's finished." His confession hit me like a bolt of lightning. The Alphaking had a curse? A man who seemed so powerful, so untouchable, was burdened by something dark and dangerous? My mind raced with questions, but I couldn't bring myself to ask. Instead, I just nodded, unsure of what to say. Xavier stepped closer, and I could feel the heat of his body radiating against mine. "But," he added, "you don't need to worry about that. You are my mate, and that means I will protect you from everything, even from myself." The way he said those words sent a chill down my spine. The intensity in his voice, the weight of his promise, it was all so overwhelming. I had never known a man like this before, and I didn't know what to make of it. He reached out, lifting my chin gently with his finger, forcing me to meet his gaze. Trust me, Lyra. Trust that I will never let you go, and trust that together, we can face anything. Even this curse. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that everything would be okay, that we could face whatever came our way. But part of me was terrified. Terrified of the unknown, terrified of the power that Xavier held, terrified of what this bond really meant for me. He seemed to sense my hesitation, and for the first time, his face softened. It's okay to be afraid, he whispered. But you're not alone. I'm right here. His words were a balm to my anxious heart, and for a moment, I allowed myself to relax, to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. The Alphaking had chosen me, and in that moment, I realized that no matter the dangers that lay ahead, I would face them with him by my side. I could feel my heart racing as Xavier's words hung in the air, the weight of his promise heavy on my shoulders. We stood in that clearing, the moonlight bathing us in its pale glow, and for a moment, everything felt surreal, like I was living someone else's dream. He had claimed me, a simple Omega, as his mate. But more than that, he had shared with me a part of his soul, a dark burden he had carried alone for so long. The curse. My mind couldn't quite grasp the reality of it. How could someone like him, so powerful, so revered, be haunted by something so deep, so painful? And yet, there he was, standing before me, vulnerable in a way I never thought possible for someone like him. The Alphaking, the ruler of all, was not invincible. He was a man who needed someone to share his burdens with, and that someone, he said, was me. I could feel his eyes on me, waiting for some kind of response, but all I could do was stare at him in awe. Xavier, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the rustling of the leaves. What exactly is this curse? Why don't you just— I trailed off, unsure of how to finish my question, unsure of whether I even wanted to know the answer. Xavier's expression darkened as he took a step closer to me, his presence overwhelming. It's not something I can control, he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. It's something that was forced upon me, something I can never escape. My father. He stopped himself, the pain of those words evident in his eyes. I killed my father, Lyra. I had no choice. He was mad with power, and I was the one who had to stop him. But the blood, the magic, it's bound to me now. It's twisted me, turned me into something not human. His words hit me like a hammer, and for the first time, I realized the full extent of what I was getting into. Xavier had killed his father? The Alphaking, the man who ruled with such strength, had been forced into a position where he had to take a life, his own father's life. And now, that blood, that power, had cursed him, bound him in a way that he couldn't escape. My heart ached for him, but there was also a part of me that was terrified. How could I help him? How could I, a mere Omega, possibly stand by his side when the weight of his past was so heavy? But Xavier seemed to sense my hesitation, and his hand found mine once more. Lyra, he said softly, his voice full of reassurance, you don't have to fix this. You don't have to save me. I don't need saving. But I need you. I need you to stay with me, to be my mate, to stand by my side, no matter what happens. His words were like a balm to my soul, soothing the fear that had taken root deep within me. I didn't have to fix him. I didn't have to take away the curse. I just had to be there, to stand with him, to support him. And in that moment, something inside me clicked. This was my fate. This was why I had been chosen. Not to cure him or to change the past, but to be with him in the present. To face whatever the future held, together. I squeezed his hand, the bond between us growing stronger with every passing second. I'm not going anywhere, Xavier, I said, my voice steady and sure. I'm here, with you. Always. A smile tugged at the corner of his lips, though there was still sadness in his eyes. You're stronger than you know, Lyra, he said, his voice low and filled with admiration. And that's why I chose you. You're my mate, and together, we can face whatever comes next. The weight of his words settled over me, and for the first time, I felt the truth of it deep in my bones. We were a team. Together, we could face anything. The curse, the pain, the fears, we would face it all, side by side. And as Xavier pulled me into his embrace, I realized that this was only the beginning of our journey. A journey that would be filled with challenges, yes, but also with love, strength, and the unbreakable bond between us. We would face it all, together. I woke up to the sound of the forest stirring, the soft rustling of the leaves, and the distant calls of wildlife. The moon was still high in the sky, casting a silver glow over everything, but it was different now. It felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Xavier lay beside me, his presence a reassuring weight against my back. His arm was draped over me, and I could feel his steady breathing, each exhale sending warmth through my body. It was the first time in my life that I had felt this safe, this complete. But even as I lay there, feeling his warmth, I couldn't shake the nagging thought in my mind. What was I really getting into? Xavier was the Alphaking, a ruler of immense power, burdened by a curse that had shaped his very existence. Could I, an Omega, truly be the one to help him? Could I be enough to share his burdens, to stand by him when the weight of his past was so overwhelming? I wasn't sure, but as I lay there, I realized one thing. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to turn away. I had made my choice. And my choice was Xavier. Slowly, I turned to face him, watching him sleep for a moment longer. His face was calm in the stillness of the night, his features softened by sleep. He looked so different from the imposing figure he was in the daylight, when his presence commanded respect and fear. Here, in the quiet of the forest, he was just a man who had been through so much and still carried the weight of a world that had never been kind to him. I reached out and traced a finger along his jawline, marveling at the warmth of his skin. He stirred slightly, but didn't wake. His grip on me tightened in his sleep, as if he could sense that I was there. I smiled softly, feeling the bond between us grow stronger with every moment. It was like we were connected on a level I couldn't fully understand, but it felt right. This was where I was meant to be. As the night wore on, I couldn't help but think of what lay ahead. Xavier had told me about the curse that plagued him, the curse that had twisted his life into something dark and unrecognizable. He had killed his father to stop a reign of madness, and now that blood, those actions, had bound him to a fate he couldn't escape. Would I be enough to help him break free from that curse? Or would I be just another piece in his tragic story, a woman caught in the storm of his past? I didn't know the answer yet, but I knew one thing. Together, we would find out. The morning light began to break through the trees, the soft golden rays filtering through the canopy above. It was a new day, and with it came new challenges. I could feel the weight of what lay ahead, but I also felt a sense of calm. Xavier and I had already taken the first step, choosing each other. And that was enough for now. As I lay there beside him, I realized that this wasn't just about the curse or the power or the duty. This was about us, about two people finding each other in a world that had never been kind, about forging a bond that was unbreakable, no matter what challenges came our way. Xavier stirred again, his eyes fluttering open as the sunlight bathed his face. For a moment, he just looked at me, his gaze filled with something I couldn't quite place, intensity, longing, but also a tenderness that took me by surprise. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair away from my face, his touch gentle. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice thick with sleep. "How did you sleep?" I smiled, feeling the warmth of his words settle deep within me. "Better than I ever have," I whispered back. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. "We have a long road ahead of us," he said, his voice steady now, though the weight of his words hung between us. "But with you by my side, Lyra, I know we can face anything." And in that moment, I realized that he was right. Together, we could face anything. We had already faced the first hurdle, finding each other. Now, it was time to face the rest of the world, no matter how dark or dangerous it might be. And we would do it together, as mates, as equals. Xavier and I were bound by a bond stronger than any curse, stronger than any fear. And with that, I knew that no matter what came next, we would find a way through it. Together, I could feel the tension in the air as Xavier and I made our way through the forest, the path ahead uncertain, the weight of the world on our shoulders. He had promised me that together we could face anything, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He was carrying a burden so heavy that I couldn't imagine it, and I could only hope that my presence would bring him the peace he so desperately needed. The curse that had plagued him for so long was still there, lurking in the shadows, but now it seemed like we were facing it head-on, together. As we walked, I couldn't help but notice how different the world felt now. The forest, once so full of mystery and danger, now felt almost comforting. The way the sun filtered through the trees, casting patterns on the ground, the gentle breeze that made the leaves rustle, it all seemed somehow warmer, more alive. It was as if the world had shifted in subtle ways, just like we had. We were no longer just two individuals, but partners, bound by a bond stronger than anything either of us had ever known. As we approached the clearing, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew I was ready. Ready to face whatever came our way, ready to stand beside Xavier no matter what. He stopped just before the clearing, his gaze distant, as if he were lost in thought. "Lyra," he said, his voice soft but filled with intensity. "There are things you don't know about me. Things I've never told anyone. The curse, it's not just a curse. It's part of me. It shapes who I am, who I've become." His words hit me like a thunderclap, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I reached out and took his hand, grounding him, grounding myself. "You don't have to tell me everything right now," I said, my voice steady. "But I'm here, and I always will be. You don't have to face this alone." Xavier looked at me, his silver eyes full of something I couldn't quite decipher. Admiration, relief, maybe even a little disbelief. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "You've given me more than I ever could have hoped for." I shook my head, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "No," I said firmly. "You deserve everything. You just don't know it yet." He squeezed my hand, the pressure comforting, reassuring. "We'll figure this out," he said. "Together." And in that moment, I knew we would. We would face whatever came, whether it was the curse or the dangers that lurked in the world around us. Together, we were stronger. Together, we could overcome anything. The sun had begun to dip lower in the sky, casting an orange glow over the horizon. The light made everything look different, more beautiful, more vibrant. I couldn't help but think that this was the beginning of something new, something powerful. Xavier and I stood at the edge of the clearing, ready to face whatever came next. There was so much we didn't know, so much we hadn't figured out yet. But in that moment, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid because I had him by my side, and he had me. And together, we would face the future, whatever it held, and carve out our own path. Our journey wasn't going to be easy, but it would be ours. And that, in itself, was more than enough. I could feel the tension in the air as we stood in the clearing, Xavier and I, the weight of the moment pressing down on both of us. The moon hung high above, casting a silvery light over the forest, but it was different now. Everything was different. I was no longer just the invisible Omega, hiding in the shadows. I was here, at the side of the Alphaking, facing whatever challenges lay ahead. Xavier was standing tall beside me, his presence commanding, but there was something different about him tonight. The burden he carried, the curse that twisted his soul, was still there, but he wasn't facing it alone anymore. And neither was I. "Lyra," Xavier said softly, his voice tinged with something I couldn't quite place. "There are still so many things I don't understand, so many things I'm not sure how to fix. But with you here, with you by my side, I feel like maybe I can start to change. Maybe we can start to change." His words hit me harder than I expected. He was opening up to me, sharing a part of himself that he had kept locked away for so long. It was raw, it was vulnerable, and in that moment, I realized just how much he had been holding inside. I reached out, taking his hand in mine, grounding him, grounding myself. "Xavier," I said, my voice steady. "We don't have to fix everything all at once. We just have to face it, one step at a time. We're in this together, and that's all that matters." He looked at me, his eyes filled with gratitude, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he smiled, genuinely smiled. It was a small smile, but it was enough to melt away the lingering doubt in my chest. We stood there for a long moment, just looking at each other, the weight of the world slowly shifting, easing. The forest around us seemed to quiet, as if it too was holding its breath. And in that stillness, I realized something that I hadn't fully understood until now. We were not just two individuals with burdens to bear. We were partners, bound by a bond that was stronger than anything either of us had ever known. I had come into this with so many doubts, so many fears, unsure of what the future would bring, unsure of what being with Xavier truly meant. But now, as I stood there, feeling his hand in mine, I understood. This was my destiny, not because of the power or the curse, but because of the love we shared, the connection between us that went deeper than anything I had ever imagined. Xavier squeezed my hand, breaking me from my thoughts. "I'll never let you go, Lyra," he whispered, his voice full of determination. "You're mine, and I am yours. No curse, no darkness can change that." His words were a promise, a vow that I could feel all the way to my core. And in that moment, I knew he was right. No curse, no past, no obstacle was too great for us to overcome as long as we were together. "I'm with you," I said, my voice firm and clear. "Always." We stood there, our hands still intertwined, knowing that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, there would be moments of doubt, but as long as we had each other, I knew we could face anything. The night around us seemed to hold its breath as we walked back into the heart of the forest, the path ahead uncertain, but our hearts in sync. And together, we would face whatever came next, no matter what it was, because we were not alone. We were mates, partners, and nothing could tear us apart. I could feel the change in the air as Xavier and I ventured deeper into the forest, the night thick around us, and the moon casting its silver glow over everything. The forest had always been a place of mystery, of danger, but now it felt like our sanctuary, a space where we could be free from the eyes of the pack, free from the burdens of the world. We walked in silence, each step taking us further from the past and closer to an uncertain future, but we were together, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a purpose. Xavier's hand was warm in mine, and as we walked, I couldn't help but feel that everything had shifted. The weight of the curse that had hung over him for so long, the darkness that had shaped his life, now seemed more bearable. It was still there, lurking in the shadows, but I could sense that with each step we took, we were facing it head-on, and we were not alone. I had once feared the curse, feared the unknowns that came with being tied to Xavier, but now, as we walked side by side, I realized that the only thing I needed to fear was losing him. The bond we shared was more than just a connection. It was a force, a strength that neither of us could explain, but one that we both felt. It was the bond of mates, the kind of bond that tied us together in a way that nothing in this world could break. As we reached a small clearing, Xavier stopped, his silver eyes scanning the horizon, his posture rigid, as if he were sensing something I couldn't. I felt a flicker of concern, but before I could ask, he turned to face me, his gaze softening. "Lyra," he said, his voice filled with something I couldn't quite place, regret, perhaps, or maybe the weight of his own doubts. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said a long time ago." I looked at him, the intensity in his eyes pulling me in. "What is it?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. Xavier's expression darkened, and for a moment, he seemed distant, lost in his own thoughts. "I've lived my life with this curse," he began, his voice quiet but heavy with emotion. "It's taken everything from me. It's made me into someone I never wanted to be, someone incapable of trusting anyone, someone who believes he's better off alone." My heart ached for him, hearing the vulnerability in his words. I wanted to reach out, to comfort him, but I knew that what he needed most was the truth. I stepped closer to him, squeezing his hand, willing him to see the truth. "Xavier, you don't have to carry this alone anymore. We're in this together, remember?" He met my gaze, his silver eyes searching mine as if looking for something, some kind of answer, or perhaps just reassurance. "I want to believe that," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "But there's so much darkness in me, Lyra. I'm afraid that one day, it will swallow me whole. That one day, I'll lose control and hurt you. I don't want to drag you into my nightmare." My heart clenched, and I could feel the pain in his words, the fear that he had carried for so long. "Xavier, I'm not afraid of you," I said firmly, my voice steady and filled with conviction. "I'm not afraid of the curse or the darkness. I'm afraid of losing you. You're my mate, and no curse, no matter how powerful, is stronger than that bond." He looked at me, his gaze softening, and for the first time in what felt like forever, a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. It was a fragile smile, but it was enough. "You're everything to me, Lyra," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're the light in my darkness. And I promise, I will never let you go." The words were like a balm to my soul, soothing the fears that had started to rise within me. I knew there would be challenges ahead, that the curse wouldn't be easily broken, but in that moment, I felt a certainty settle deep within me. We were stronger than any curse, stronger than anything that had tried to tear us apart. Xavier and I stood there in the clearing, the moonlight shining down on us, our bond stronger than ever. The world felt still, as if it were waiting for us to make our next move, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Together, we could face whatever came next. Together, we would overcome it all. I stood there in the moonlit clearing, Xavier beside me, the weight of the world on our shoulders, but somehow, in that moment, it didn't feel as heavy. The curse, the darkness, the challenges, we would face them all, together. It was a strange sense of peace, one I had never known, but it felt like the right kind of peace. The forest around us whispered in the breeze, the world seemingly holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. I looked up at Xavier, his silver eyes reflecting the light of the moon, but they also held something else, something new. Hope. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of hope in him, a spark of something brighter than the darkness that had overshadowed his life for so long. Lyra, Xavier said, his voice low and steady. You've given me more than I ever thought I could have. You've shown me a way out of the darkness, and I don't know how I can ever repay you for that. His words were filled with raw emotion, and I could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the weight of everything he had been carrying. But there was also a strength there, a strength that came from knowing we were in this together. You don't have to repay me, Xavier, I said, my voice calm, my hand reaching for his. We're mates. We don't need to repay each other. We're partners in this, and that's all that matters. He looked at me, his expression softening, and I could see the truth in his eyes. You're right, he whispered. I don't need to be afraid anymore. With you by my side, I can face whatever comes. Together, we can overcome anything. The words felt like a promise, one that I knew we would keep. Together, we were stronger than any curse, than any fear. The path ahead of us was uncertain, yes, but now, it didn't matter. We had each other, and that was all we needed. The future no longer seemed like an overwhelming force. It was something we would shape together, step by step, side by side. The night was quiet now, the air still, and for a brief moment, everything seemed perfect. But I knew there would be more challenges, more obstacles, and the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be times when the darkness would try to creep back in, when the weight of Xavier's curse would threaten to tear us apart. But I also knew one thing for sure, we would never face it alone. We were mates. We were partners. And together, there was nothing we couldn't overcome. As we stood there, in the heart of the forest, I knew that no matter what came next, we would face it together. The bond we shared, the love we had, was stronger than any curse. And that love would carry us through whatever challenges the world had in store. With Xavier by my side, I knew we could conquer anything. Together, we would write our own story, one that was filled with love, strength, and hope. The curse might have defined Xavier's past, but it would not define our future. Our future was ours to create, and with each other, we were unstoppable. In a world where the supernatural intertwines with reality, follow the journey of Lyra and Omega and Xavier, the Alphaking, as they navigate the challenges of a cursed existence. Their story unfolds within a werewolf pack, where the forces of destiny and power shape their lives. Xavier, burdened by a curse that has haunted him for years, finds solace and strength in Lyra, who has always felt invisible. As they face the perils that come with being part of a werewolf kingdom, their bond grows, and together, they begin to rewrite their fates. The curse that has defined Xavier's past becomes the backdrop for a love that defies all odds. With the power of their connection, they fight the darkness that threatens to tear them apart. A werewolf's journey is never easy, but for Xavier and Lyra, their journey together proves that love can conquer even the most powerful curses. With each new challenge, their bond deepens, and they discover that the key to breaking Xavier's curse lies not in fighting the world around them, but in embracing the werewolf power that flows between them. This is a story of love, strength, and destiny, where the curse that has plagued a werewolf king becomes the very thing that binds them together. Through their trials, Lyra and Xavier prove that no matter how dark the world may seem, a werewolf's heart, bound by love, can overcome any obstacle.